Welcome back to the second half of NEWSBREAK Live, and joining me is Jessica Beaudoin, who is a registered dietitian from Providence Little Company of Mary Medical Center. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us again. I know you've been on a few community cooking shows.
Yes, I have. It's been really fun.
And Torrance students will be heading back to school this Thursday, and it's great to be able to pack those healthy lunches. So what should students and parents start thinking about right now when it comes to eating at school?
You know, back to school is a busy time. I know none of us are ever ready for summer to quite be over. And at this time of year, we're starting to think about ways that we can continue to help our kids eat healthfully as they return back to school. So I have a few tips today to kind of help parents prepare and then start creating some healthy meals and snacks as kids move back towards school. And I think a few key elements to success include getting prepared ahead of time, making sure that you know the do's and don'ts around bringing foods to school, specific to your child's school and classroom, and then getting creative with the whole process as you continue to move through the semester and school year.
The first step is to have those tools prepared, right? So
Absolutely.
What do you mean when you say that?
So it's important to have the things that you'll need to pack lunches together. And before you even start, it's important to take a step back and say, well, what kind of storage facilities are available for kids on the campus? And also, what kind of restrictions does the particular school have around foods? Many schools have children with very severe food allergies. So one of the first things to check is to find out if there are any specific restrictions around peanuts or other types of nuts, either in the classroom or within the school. And then secondly, you want to find out how the lunches you send to school will be stored. Will there be an option for them to put it in a refrigerator? Probably not. You may need an insulated lunch bag. In addition to that, you'll also need ice packs in order to keep the food cold. So it's important to make sure you have all the tools you need on hand. Having a good mix of different size Tupperware, either glass or plastic Tupperware on hand is always a good idea. And then again, either an insulated or non-insulated bag, depending on what types of foods you'll send, and a good mix of different size Ziplocs as well, so you have the tools you need to get started.
So once you have the tools, then you actually need the food to prepare those healthy meals and set those healthy snacks, and that has to do with shopping. So when parents head to the grocery store, should they bring their children along? I guess what kind of tradition should they start?
You know, I think it's always a good idea to bring children grocery shopping. It gets them involved in the meal planning process. It gets them interested in food. It gets them interested in cooking at a young age. And you can even start to teach basic healthy eating information as you're walking through the grocery store. And also research shows us that when kids are more involved in not only shopping but also preparing the meals, they're more likely to try new foods and they're more likely to enjoy them. And so it's a great way to, especially with picky eaters, to get them to try new foods. So I recommend bringing your kids with you to the grocery store. You know, let them run around the produce aisle within reason.
That's right, within reason.
Absolutely. You know, let them pick out a fruit or let them pick out a vegetable, or, you know, comment on different fruits and vegetables as you're shopping. Maybe try something exotic that your family doesn't normally try when you're grocery shopping. Another great way to involve kids when you're grocery shopping is when you're using the nutrition facts panel to find healthier selections. In fact, a great website, foodsafety.gov, which is the Food and Drug Administration's website for food safety, has all sorts of great tips for parents and for kids on not only how to prepare food safely at home, but also things about reading the nutrition facts label. They've got worksheets, they've got games. You know, it's a great way to take the classroom, to extend the classroom into the home setting, you know, practicing math skills by comparing sodium content of different foods, or looking for the cereal with the highest fiber content. You can kind of make a little bit of a game of it when you're shopping. So definitely involve kids with the shopping process.
And when you buy those produce, the fruits, kind of like the basic healthy snacks that we think of, do you have any examples of what a healthy meal should look like, or a snack?
Certainly. You know, it's when you're planning a school lunch, it's good to involve a variety of food groups. So I like to do a little mental checklist when I'm preparing my meals or when I'm looking ahead to the week. How many food groups have I included in this meal? You want to aim for at least 3 different food groups, if not all 5 if you can. And just to review for those out there who it's been a while for us taking nutrition classes, there are 5 basic food groups. There's fruits and vegetables, whole grains, protein-based foods, and dairy. So you want to try to get at least 3 of those options in the meal, and if not, more. So you want to get a good amount of food groups, but you also want to emphasize proportionality. At least one of those food groups should be a fruit or a vegetable. And in general, you want to make at least half your diet comprised of fruits and veggies, which is a long way from where most Americans are currently, so that may take some working up. But including at least a little bit of fruits and vegetables, if not half of the lunch bag should be fruits and vegetables, is a good rule of thumb to follow. And also emphasizing whole grains. I think we're becoming more aware of the benefits of whole grains, and they're much more abundant in the grocery aisles these days. But making it a point to use whole grains over refined grains, things like whole wheat bread, whole wheat pastas, brown rice. These have much higher fiber content and more nutrients, which are really important for growing kids.
Would you say grains, for example, is a type of trend that you've been seeing?
Yeah, definitely. Food manufacturers have really picked up on the fact that dietary guidelines now recommend that if not half or more of our food, of our grain intake should be from whole grains. And so it's important to watch for, to find whole grains, but also to do your detective work, because many food marketers have also figured out that if they just use certain key phrases, they can make a food seem healthier, even though it may not be 100% whole. So the trick is, when you're looking for breads, when you're looking for pastas, when you're looking for grain-based foods, flip over the package, look at the ingredient list. You want to find the word whole in front of any grain-based ingredient. Enriched does not mean it's going to be a whole grain. Enriched actually is white flour with added vitamins and minerals to it.
Wow.
So you want to look for whole grains on the ingredients list. Another good, reliable method of finding whole grains is to look for the Whole Grain Council stamp, which is a yellow, almost postage stamp looking icon. And that's a reliable way of finding whole grains as well.
So we know what to do and what to look for when it comes to meals or snacks. What are some don'ts you would recommend?
So, you know, a lot of times when we're sending kids off to school with healthy lunches, we'll sneak in an extra treat, you know, a treat on each day to make them enjoy the lunch. And I think that's nice and it's well-meaning, certainly, but you don't want to make treats kind of an expected daily occurrence. And by treats, I mean dessert-based items, things with added sugars, salty snacks, things like chips or Cheetos. Those should be considered more of sometimes foods. You definitely don't want to totally keep those out of kids' diets if they're used to having them, but only include them from time to time. So I would recommend keeping it to a once-a-week treat or more. It depends on where your kid's starting, but work your way down to at least once a week so that they can sometimes have a nice little surprise in their lunchbox and something to look forward to. I wouldn't recommend telling them when you sneak that extra treat and let it be a surprise. That's always kind of fun.
Surprises are fun, but it's also not a good idea for parents, I assume, to trick their children into eating certain fruits and vegetables. I know you mentioned that to me, so can you tell me what that means, the hidden veggies and fruits?
Yes, this is a trend that I've seen. A lot of well-meaning parents are trying to get their kids to eat more fruits and veggies, but they find that their children are quite picky, especially if they're not familiar with fruits or vegetables. And a lot of children, that's a tough sell. And so some parents, what they'll do is try to hide the vegetables within the food. You know, blend up some carrots and sneak it into the tomato sauce. Surreptitiously add fruits to their smoothie in the morning or what have you. And while that's coming from a good approach, you do want to increase their nutrient intake. You don't want to establish distrust. You know, once the child eventually finds out, oh, mom's been sneaking carrots in my tomato sauce, that leads to distrust between the parent and child. And with something so fundamental as food, you definitely don't want to have that backfire on you. So rather, involving kids in the purchasing process, giving them some level of discretion in what types of fruits or vegetables are available, and encouraging them to try new things is a great way to get them to eat more fruits and vegetables rather than sneaking it into their foods.
These are great tips, and I want to talk about making your lunch ahead of time. This is not just for elementary school students, this goes for adults and high school students. Why is that so important?
You know, the mornings are a crazy time, especially for parents who are dealing with different drop-off times and their own schedules. And the last thing you want to have to worry about, in addition to making breakfast and getting kids dressed, combed out the door, is having to pack a lunch. So I recommend taking as much of the stress out of the morning routine as possible. A couple of tips that I have to help make the morning meal prep a little bit easier is start thinking ahead when you're grocery shopping. You know, how many days worth of lunches will you need to pack? How many whole fruits or how many servings of fruits will you need to buy in order to meet all of those lunches? And even when you get home from the grocery store, go ahead and package them into individual little packs. Another trick that I do is I'll take nuts and seeds and dried fruits and put them into little Ziploc baggies in single-serve portions, and I just have them on hand in my cabinet. I use those for breakfast. I also use them as a filler for lunches, and they can be a great grab-and-go, like, what else am I going to add to this lunch? Grab one of the pre-made snacks. Another tip I have is to package leftovers smartly. So after you've made your dinner, let's say if you're going to be sending your kid to school with some leftovers the next day, before you even put the food away, instead of putting it into a large container, put it into small single-serve containers. That's what I often do. I have a bunch of 1 to 2 cup serving-sized Tupperware at home where I'll just portion my leftovers into 5 different containers, for example, and then I've got 5 lunches ready to go. So save yourself the morning scramble of having to portion that out the day of. You could also just put the whole sandwich the whole meal together the night before, so that way it's just literally grab the bag and run out the door.
That's the easiest way to go. Who doesn't love leftovers?
Exactly.
And if people, parents, they don't prepare the lunch for their kids, and they're like, here, let's have you buy some lunch at school. Talk to me about cafeteria food nowadays at school. I know it's very different when we were in school, and it's not a bad option, right?
Absolutely. In fact, I think a lot of parents, when they think about school meals, they remember what they were served in childhood. I know I think back to the fruit portions that were cherry pie filling, or the French fries, or the all-you-can-eat pancakes day. School meals have come a long way over the past 5 years, in fact. In 2012, Congress passed what was called the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, which required that schools that receive public funding, they now have to align their meals with the dietary guidelines. So nowadays, school meals look very different than they did even 5 years ago. All children who receive school meals have to take at least 1 fruit or veggie. Most of the grains offered at schools are whole grain, if not 100%. Some schools have gone 100%. They offer lean proteins. The milks are now only low-fat and skim milks.
That's interesting.
So they've really come a long way, and schools have had a few years to adapt to this new meal pattern, and they're getting better at implementing this and making the food taste good. So, if it comes to the morning and you just don't have time to put a lunch together, school meals purchasing a meal at school is actually a good option, and you can rest assured that your child will receive a nutritionally balanced meal.
So many great tips, Jessica. Thank you for joining me on NEWSBREAK. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
And if you're looking for some recipes, you can also go to california.providence.org for more recipes by the nutritionists at the hospital. And don't forget, Provinceville Company of Mary Medical Center also has a farmer's market. You can find more information on that website as well, california.providence.org. Well, that does it for NEWSBREAK Live. If you ever have news or video that you'd like to share, please email us at newsbreak@torranceca.gov. And don't forget to tune into the Torrance City Council meeting. For Facebook and Twitter users, use #NewsBreakLive. Have a great night.